So, it's day 3 of my camping journey. I've been to other campsites. This one is particularly beautiful. I think what I like about it the most is it reminds me of my last home. The premise, I mean. And I guess it's just being amongst the trees. I didn't get a fantastic water view, obviously, in my home. But the irony was our lot was not wooded, but it backed up to the woods. And so we were amongst a bunch of trees. So the topic today that I was thinking about is manipulation. Gang stalking is predominantly built on manipulation. And the manipulation is a two-way street, actually, based on the terrorizing that a victim, or as it's called in the gang stalking world, a target, experiences. Unbeknownst to them, they are manipulated into responding with fear and helplessness. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I know I experienced that. I felt helpless for a long time. I told my family and people I knew what I was going through. They didn't believe me. The one thing that I was always grateful for is I never thought for a moment that I was going crazy. I knew I wasn't. I knew there was nothing cognitively wrong with me or emotionally. But the manipulation is designed, and if they're effective, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's to create self-doubt. I said that it was manipulation in a two-way street. And that's because what's really funny, oh, that's really pretty. Let's see if you can see that. The participants are, I call them minions. But there's a part of me that feels sorry for them because unbeknownst to them, they're being manipulated as well. Someone manipulated them into doing their dirty work. Isn't it just like the schoolyard bully? These participants have been manipulated into doing the dirty work for some individual whose ego has been bruised, or for some individual who has a little insecurity. And when you really get down to it, that's what it boils down to. You see, gang stalking is often the result of one individual or a few individuals who have been successful at recruiting groups of people to believe a narrative that they have fabricated about an individual. If you look in the Bible, you'll see there's so many instances. I call all of what has happened and what is happening to people coordinated hostility. Because gang stalking is just part of it. You see these profound articles about individuals who experience imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when someone feels inadequate, someone feels like they're fake. They're in an environment where they're fake, and what they're doing is not up to par with their peers. And I know that definition kind of mixes imposter syndrome and inferiority complex. It's kind of a mix of both. But the reality is, when you think about it, why would you think that you were a fake? If you went to college and you got the degree and you're sitting in that job, you got that job after you took all those tests. Why do you think you're a fake? I'll tell you why. Because someone with a bruised ego, someone who experienced disbelief or cognitive dissonance, decided that since the barriers to entry didn't keep you out, that if they implant self-doubt in you, they can stunt your growth. Isn't that interesting? You see it in the Bible, though. Gang stalking and reputation erosion, character assassination. I think about the story of David and Goliath. What's really interesting to me about that story is a lot of times the focus is on the faith that David had, this small, young shepherd boy who was able to kill a giant with one stone, one throw, with a slingshot. And that is definitely the moral of the story, is trusting in God. The other story that's not talked about very often is King Saul. You see, that village had an issue with Goliath, and nobody could do it. Nobody could get rid of Goliath. And David, who had faith in God, trusted in his ability to be able to do it through the graciousness of God. And while everyone was willing to accept the value that David, sorry, you probably hear that plane. Everyone was willing to accept the value that David brought to the table. They doubted him, but if he could do it, they were willing to accept it. However, once he did, there was a dynamic shift in that village. The village women started singing David's praises. They sang his name out. The Bible even talks about the song they sang, and I can't think of it now, but it ruffled some feathers. King Saul, to be exact. See, he didn't have a problem with what David did. He had a problem with the impact that it had on the way the village saw David. It gave him a sense of insecurity. He feared that there would be misplaced loyalty amongst the village because they saw David as a hero. And because of his insecurity and his envy of what the village people saw in David, he coordinated a whole effort, character assassination, gang stalking. I mean, there were several points that King Saul, who hunted after David, had thousands of his warriors searching for David. One single little shepherd boy. That's something. The interesting thing is, while it doesn't talk about it in the Bible, I wonder if the Kingsmen ever asked themselves, isn't it overkill that all of us are searching after one shepherd boy? They probably didn't ask that question, because as the ringleader, as the king, the highest in the land, their loyalty was to him, because what was the alternative? If they didn't cooperate, they could be next, right? That's exactly what happens with gang stalking. Often these people, either they don't know anything about the target, or they have their own questions about why they're going after the target, but they dare not ask them, because what's the alternative? Enjoy the feeling of belonging to a group who has a common goal, or be ostracized and possibly be gang stalked themselves. That's interesting. So like I said, gang stalking is really the story of manipulation. The hunted and the hunter are both manipulated by the ringleader. That's something, isn't it?